So, when it comes to customers, no matter if it's B2B or B2C, we have the spending side and the investment side, the saving side. The saving side, we had Ayondo and the future of savings, for instance, and now the other side is consuming things, and for the consumption of things, you need one thing and one thing only, and this is payment. And the future of payment, we'll have a little insight from Arne Pache from Mastercard. Arne, welcome on stage.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. So let's shift to the impacts on retail banking and especially payments, given my background at Mastercard. That's obviously the focus. I saw on one of the previous slides robotics, so I brought a little robot as well, and you will see this later on in a short video. So let's start with the three megatrends which are affecting retail banking and especially payments, and you hear them over and over again. The demographic shift towards millennials taking over, that are kind of dismissive to banks, that are very much focused on sleek user interfaces and companies that are really solving problems and making their lives easier. There are a lot of fintechs out there, and the number is growing day by day. And like we have seen in many other industries, many of them won't survive, but some of them will. And it's very difficult to find the ones that will and are true disruptors, or maybe true disruptors to retail banking business. And they're the Facebooks and Googles of this world that are also creating unique interfaces and are moving out of their core competencies in some areas and combining industries and user interfaces for the consumer in one single sleek user experience. As a result, retail banking as it stands today is under attack. And that's a fact that nobody is going to dispute, and the question is, how should banks deal with that, and how should the entire industry deal with that? Because obviously banks deliver a certain value, and that is something that is not going to disappear. So the functions that banks provide will remain in one shape or form. Now, millennials. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because it's coming in basically all presentations. But what everybody observes is that millennials are very much mobile-centric, and as I said before, focusing on sleek user experiences. There are many examples out there. Apple Pay is one of those, and there are many to follow. And banks need to react to that. If I take a personal example, I'm banking with one of the largest German banks, and that bank only introduced an Android Pay mobile banking app 2 years ago. It's one of the leading institutes in Germany. That's appalling in a way. Now, as a consequence, banks need to get their arms around that new age group and need to focus much more on what is to come rather than what is today. Their existing clients that are still walking into the branch offices, all their new clients will access their bank via mobile devices and won't walk into a branch any longer. Now, let's talk a little bit about disruption. There are all these fintech firms out there, and some of them have already grown to a size that they are becoming quite visible. A German example is N26, that are offering purely mobile banking, but there are similar examples out there in almost all markets, especially in the Anglo-Saxon markets, and you will see some of them on the slides I brought today. And they have reached a size in certain markets with significant investment volume and significant consumer basis that most of the CEOs of all leading global banks are taking them very serious. And they're taking different routes to action to deal with that. Some of the big banks are starting their own mobile banks as separate companies. Some start to partner with fintechs. And that's exactly what from our point of view, should happen and will happen if banks want to continue to play a role in that environment. And these are some of the examples that we thought were quite interesting because they're all focusing on the mobile device or digital devices. You see the Apple Watch as an example, and they're not so much focusing on what traditional retail banks do, so offering the whole portfolio from A to Z. They're picking out certain valuable elements out of the value chain, and they're creating sleek user interfaces, and they're putting the consumer in control. So if you take the Move-In example, if consumers show an unusual spending behavior of overspending or underspending, even the color of their screen changes to alert them that something is out of the ordinary. Or take the Mondo example, if the electricity bill is especially high a certain month, the app alerts the consumer that there could be something wrong with the electricity because it's out of the norm. So it's all centers around the consumer, and all the information is with the consumer 24/7. Initially, the focus of these fintechs was very much on lending, but quite recently, it has significantly stepped up in terms of investments and activity in the categories of payments and also assets and deposits. So these are three core categories that traditional retail banks offer today. Now, currently, most of them are specified or specialized in their particular corners, but the ones that will successfully grow and cover all three bases are serious competitors to traditional retail banking. As a consequence, banks that want to play a role in the future should either mimic some of the behavior that these fintechs have developed or partner with those fintechs to remain valuable for the consumer in the future. Intermediation. Google, Facebook, we saw already Apple Pay in one of the presentations. They're all in control of the consumer interface in their respective categories, and they're expanding that control over the consumer interface into other categories, and payments are an integral part. Many of the business models require payments to fly. So Apple naturally created an Apple Pay. Google naturally created an Android Pay, and many others are developing solutions in their own category, and they're creating something, a new category, which is now called Conversational Commerce, where, take Facebook Messenger, for example, I can order my Uber car and pay my Uber car within Facebook Messenger. I don't even have to leave the Messenger and open up my Uber app. I do it in a natural conversation, like I would do from human to human, even though it's a robot on the other end. WeChat, another great example, 600 million users in China. They have fully integrated a whole range of payment and banking services with their consumers. And out of these 600 million, 95% use that app at least 10 times a day. That's a consumer base. So if we bring this down to payments, what do we see happening in payments, and how is the world going to change? So banks, as well as companies that want to engage in payments, they need to look at three axes in that. One, security, because security is not only mandated by the regulator, and take PSD2 as an example. Strong security is a key asset and is required. Convenience. Needless to say that whatever a bank or another entity offers to an end consumer has to be convenient, it has to be mobile, and it needs to have the capability to scale. And scaling is absolutely key in that industry. So when we look at domestic solutions, small solutions that don't build on international standards, they will have a real difficulty to scale in the market, and they are more likely to fail. So international standards, combined with a high level of security. And the key words in that area these days are tokenization, so replacing payment credentials, real payment credentials, with something else that even if it's attacked, stolen, or whatever, nobody can do anything with it. Strong authentication, so am I the customer I say I am? Very important. And in that category, biometrics, and we saw Apple Pay with a fingerprint reader, will play an important role in the future. And chip-level security, so payments, we all have our plastic cards in our pockets with a little chip on it, with a very high level of security. Everyone in the room trusts that payment device. We need to have the same trust in digital. So what Mastercard does, Mastercard focus very much on building solutions that address all key elements of those three axes that I've just mentioned. Focus on mobile, across all channels, across all devices. Consumers don't make this distinction. In the industry, we talk about omni-channel and whatever. The consumer uses a smart device and expects that to work in whatever environment he's in, whether he shops in-app, whether he shops on browser, or whether he shops in-store. The consumers no longer make that difference. So we should stop making that difference and focusing on a single mobile interface. Multiple large banks have adopted and embraced this concept around the globe. So there are millions of mobile users that are capable of paying across multiple devices, across multiple channels. And this is primarily all built in our world on what we call the Mastercard Digital Enablement Service, which is a service that digitizes the current plastic that we have in our wallets in multiple digital destinations. And it doesn't matter whether you digitize a card into an Amazon, for example, a card-on-file wallet, or whether you digitize it into a bank wallet or into an Apple Pay wallet. This infrastructure launched only 2 years ago. Apple was the first client on that infrastructure, introducing Apple Pay as their own offering into the market. In the meantime, multiple others have followed, like Android Pay, like Samsung Pay, Microsoft Wallet, and there are a couple of others mentioned here. Even PayPal is on the picture, as they're using that infrastructure currently in the US to bring PayPal to the physical point of sale, leveraging a mobile phone based on Mastercard infrastructure. I'd like to finish with a little movie that illustrates a little bit how this world currently looks like already in some parts of this world and will hopefully soon look like in Germany as well. Can you start the movie, please?
Unsere Welt verändert sich. Und wir? Wir verändern uns mit ihr. In einem rasend schnellen Tempo. Die digitale Welt schafft völlig neue Möglichkeiten. Wie wir arbeiten, wie wir uns fortbewegen, wie wir kommunizieren, wie wir einkaufen und wie wir bezahlen. Mastercard hat sie schon heute. Innovative Lösungen für unseren modernen Alltag. Ein Alltag, der unkompliziert ist und vernetzter, in dem wir einfach unabhängig sind. Mastercard bietet heute Technologien, die an unseren digitalen Alltag angepasst sind. Technologien, die unser Leben wirklich erleichtern. Technologien, die immer intelligenter werden. Technologien, die uns einander näher bringen. Technologien, die uns ganz gleich in welcher Situation unterstützen und deshalb unverzichtbar sind. Bezahlen so einfach wie noch nie, jederzeit, überall, von jedem Gerät. Das ist Mastercard. Es ist eine aufregende Welt, in der wir heute leben. Lassen Sie sie uns gemeinsam gestalten.